Hello, wonderful. Here we are going to talk yourself. And I know this is a question many of you have had, and I'm excited to dive into it today as I practice my safe social distancing. Don't worry, there's no one around. But how to stand up for yourself. And this is kind of like a diamond, okay? Think about when you have a diamond and there's all these different sides to it, right? So it's multifaceted, okay? So the answer that I'm going to give you is going to be multifaceted, okay? So hang on, get ready, because the simple answer, the easy answer is, well, just stand up for yourself, right? We'll just do it. We'll just say it. Don't let them bother you, which is what your friends have probably told you, right? And you're like, well, that didn't work. So what will work, okay? So when you think about standing up for yourself, there's two different things that I want to address first. One, is it a physically safe situation to stand up for yourself? Because sometimes we have toxic people who go into rages and they basically, I don't want to say, they are not at a place that you could reason with them where anything would work, okay? So if you are ever in a situation where someone is raging, get out of the situation, okay? That's step one. There is no answer. You can say stop, you can say leave me alone. Those are appropriate, but keep yourself safe, okay? So when someone is raging, they are not reasonable. When someone is raging, they are not reasonable. So do not try to talk to them in that state of mind, okay? But if they're, it's not a situation where they're raging, they are trying to be in control, right? And they are trying to get you to do what they want so they can get what they want. Now, what's tricky about this is the reason you're not standing up for yourself is because you feel bad, you feel mean, you feel selfish, you feel like you're not worth it, you feel like, well, it's not the right thing to do, well, I can let them have their way this time, well, it's not that big of a deal, okay? So your flexibility is used against you. My guess is when I take personality tests, I score much higher on wanting connection than control. Okay, I want to be friends, I want to get along, I want people to like each other, right? And my guess is that is you as well. And so when you are in a situation where you are being, you may want to stand up for yourself, you tend to be more willing to accommodate because you are worried more about the relationship than you are about getting your way. Okay? The problem is when it goes on and on and on and on and on, and then you realize, wait, I never get my way. Wait, it's never my turn. Okay? And remember when we went back to that place of, it's not, you feel like it's not nice to ask for what you want. You feel like it's not nice to bother them. You feel like it's not nice to have expectations, that kind of thing. I want to be super clear and say it is not nice to be in a relationship where one person always gets their way. So you feel like you aren't being nice to stand up for yourself, when in reality, the other person is actually not being nice because they're being selfish. There's a dynamic in the relationship where they get their way and you don't get your way. And they want to keep that dynamic going, and that dynamic becomes hell for you, right? You just thought if you kept giving and giving and giving, eventually it would be your turn. And I used this example in a video earlier this week, but it's like a child where you give them candy every night for dinner. And then one night they don't have candy for dinner and you ask them to eat their vegetables. And in your mind, you're thinking, gosh, this one time I ask you to eat your vegetables, I'm flexible 99% of the time. And this one time I ask you to do something, you don't do it. And the child is thinking, no, 100% of the time I should get candy. They're not giving you any credit for the 99 times you gave in. They're going to fight you on the one time you did not. And toxic people do the same thing. You probably realize this and you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what's happening. They have not given you credit for the 99 times you've given in. They are expecting 100% credit for every time. Okay? So you have to recognize that when I talk about the answer being multifaceted, you have to recognize, kind of like pull the veil up behind what's happening and recognize what's happening before you can really do something about what's happening, right? Because otherwise you feel mean, you feel ugly, you feel selfish, and they've probably told you these things. Or maybe you had a parent who told you these things. Or it's just you have a more personality that I couldn't think of that word, a personality that's more focused on relationship than getting your way. Welcome to the club. Me too. That's exactly how I am, exactly how the clients are that I work with, because they're good, nice, loving, giving, forgiving people who've had that used against them. People have taken advantage of that situation. And in The Sociopath Next Door, there's a quote, and it said, "I love do-gooders. They do me so much good." And in another quote I read recently, that it says, "Givers have to set boundaries because takers rarely do." So in your mind, you're thinking, gosh, I've given in. I've earned my right to stand up for myself. And the person who has gotten their way is like, what? You're tipping the apple cart. To them, sometimes in these relationships, it's like you're an extension of them. They don't think of you as a separate person. They think of you as an extension of them. So imagine if your arm starts acting up, right? My arm has actually been hurting. I think I've been on the Facebook group so much recently. My hand has been hurting. I'm going to take a break. Been on my phone a lot recently. And so my arm was hurting. So I'm like rubbing, digging on my arm, and like, oh, my arm hurts. And I don't ask my arm permission if it's okay with me digging in on it. My arm isn't doing what I want it to, and so I'm going to dig in on it. I may go to a massage therapist when all this is over. Who knows when that will be. And they'll dig in on it, If my arm kept hurting, I might go to a doctor. I might go to a surgeon. And I don't think, oh gosh, my arm, I need to ask my arm permission. I wonder if my arm's okay with this. And that's exactly how toxic people can think of you. They don't wonder, how are they feeling about this? Are they okay with this? They think, why isn't my arm behaving? And so when you stand up for yourself, that is what is going on in their head. And that is why they feel like they have the right. And yes, I said that's why they feel like they have the right. Somebody's digging on something over there. Why they have the right to get you back in line. Okay? And that, I know it sounds crazy, but I think it will make sense as you really think about and see what's happening. So, remember I said this is a multifaceted answer. So the first thing is recognize what's happening. Second is recognize that you can be a good, kind, loving, giving person and still ask for what you want. And still stand up for yourself. You're not a bad person. Somebody may have told you you were. You're not a bad person for standing up for yourself. They just made you feel bad so they could get candy every day, so they could have what they wanted. So you can still be their arm rather than their partner or adult child. Okay? So, next step is I want you to think about a little girl in your life or a best friend or someone you really respect and like, and I want you to write them a letter with all the self-talk you have in your head. Okay? Because I cannot imagine looking at my little girl and saying, you do not have the right to stand up for yourself. Your hobbies end when you become a mother. In fact, your personhood ends when you become a partner. My job as your mother is to get to dictate every single thing in your life for the rest of your life, because I will always know what's best for you, and you should always do what I say. I hope you were like, oh my gosh, because I would never say that stuff to my child. But we tell ourselves that that's okay in our head when it's someone else referring to us. So when you start thinking about what you were telling yourself, oh, I have to obey my parents. Oh, I have to do this for my daughter. Oh, I have to give until I bleed out. When you are telling yourself that, I don't think you would ever tell someone else that. But we're all helpers in this group, right? And you are modeling that behavior for others. You are modeling that behavior for a little girl in your life. You're modeling it for a sister. You're modeling it for a niece. You're modeling it for a student. You're modeling it for whoever. And there was a post recently about a person I kicked out of the group. And they were like, oh, you didn't have to kick her out. I was like, yeah, I did. She was toxic. I don't play around with toxic people. I tell you you shouldn't, and if you recognize something is wrong, end it. Do not give them 500 chances. I do not have time to give people in my life 500 chances anymore. No more, no more, no more. So I have the time, I have the energy, I have the smiles to move on and move up and help the people who really want helped, not to accommodate toxic people getting their way even more than they already have. Okay? And I hope that for your life too. I want you to model boundaries for the people in your life. So often we can't do it for ourselves at first. I had to write this letter as if for my college roommate, okay? And I wrote what I was putting up with as if she was putting up with it. And I told her, in this letter, we're very dear friends still, but I told her in this letter that she had to put up with it, that she deserved to put up with it, that she didn't deserve better. And it felt so incredibly awful and mean and horrible. And I realized that's what I was telling myself. I realized that's what I was modeling for the people in my life who matter most. I realized I was telling the whole world, you shouldn't stand up for yourself. If I can't, we can't play this double rule of, well, you should stand up for yourself, but I can't. And I had someone really call me out on it, and they said, basically, aren't you trying to act like you're God? And if you are so perfect and so good and so giving and so wonderful that you can put up with people's bad behavior and be the martyr and bleed out for them, and you're better, you don't deserve human rights because you're thinking you're worse than human. And I was like, I had no idea. And it actually became a really humble place in my life when I said, I can't put up with this anymore. No human should have to put up with this. I cannot put up with this anymore. And it came from such a place of humility of like, gosh, who could? Who would be good at this? Who would be good at putting up with this? No human I know would be good at putting up with this, so I shouldn't either. And that was such a comforting place to be able to come from it with humility rather than, you're too good for that. You're too good for him. You shouldn't put up with that. Your friends have probably said some of that stuff to you, or, you need to tell your parents off. You're not a kid anymore, whatever it may be. You shouldn't put up with that from your boss. And that energy probably did not resonate with you. So, the people who do it are the ones who get the lives they want. Okay? Sending you love. Bye.